Do you want to kick us off, Sammy?
Yes, hang on a minute. I just, got it there. I had a big thing come up on my screen. So hello, everybody. Yes, this is August strategy. I actually haven't done this before, this section. Who is Animal Rebellion? So Animal Rebellion is a mass movement that uses non-violent civil disobedience to bring about a transition to a just and sustainable plant-based food system to halt mass extinction, alleviate the worst effects of climate breakdown, and ensure justice for animals. So we've got animal and climate justice, we have global justice, system change, and we're grounded in community. What is our strategy? So here we can see our strategy. We have tactics. We have different tactics for different campaigns. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different. Those campaigns are geared towards strategic milestones and to our strategic objective. So things can change, we can do things different ways, but they all lead to our objective. So our objective is a just, sustainable plant-based food system in the UK. What we want to do is change the political weather, raise public awareness about the crucial need to shift to the UK to a plant-based food system. We want to shift the Overton window so that a transition to a plant-based food system is synonymous with the ending of the climate crisis. Metrics, public opinion, media, using phrases such as structural focus of movement. So these are the ways we're going to do it, and we are going to do it. We want to know that that becomes a dominant part of the climate movement. So the words transition to a plant-based food system and anything to do with the climate become synonymous. Greenpeace and others are taking strong positions on it and make it part of their campaigns. Animal Rebellion can strongly ally with those movements. Becomes part of political discourse. So we want Animal Rebellion's voice to become part of the political discourse in the sense that we want to transition to a plant-based food system. That has to be, we target individual MPs and their voting habits, major political parties included in their manifestos for things like subsidies and so on, other aims that we're heading towards. So getting the government to include animal agriculture in all climate talks and agree that this is a major contribution to the climate crisis is our goal. Climate movement is, our fourth goal is that the climate movement is successful in its aims and a citizens' assembly or major government action takes place.
So I can jump in here. Thanks so much, Sammy.
You're welcome.
In December of last year, so December 2020, we did a strategy consultation. So this was with every team or almost every team within Animal Rebellion, everyone who were able to schedule a meeting with, where we went to the team and ran a workshop where we kind of talked about what are the aims and the goals of Animal Rebellion and how we can kind of set goals for this year which allow us to work towards them. So out of that consultation, we came up with some amazing things, like just from seeing kind of common themes and things that kind of kept coming up again and again and again. And from that, we found these like key areas which were where the kind of everyone together seemed to really want to focus our energies on. So one of those was getting a win in the media. One of those was mass mobilizing, as well as growing internally. And all of these had like kind of specific goals, which I'll talk about in a second as well. Another of those was seeing our campaigns achieve like real kind of wins, like politically and in the public as well. And then there were areas where people felt like we could do a lot more growing in. So one of those was visioning the future, so doing better at visioning what the world could be like. Another of those was being more connected on a global level, and so working on our international groups. And another of those was being more connected locally, so forming more coalitions and building more connections that way. So every month we check back in on these and see how we're doing. That's kind of part of the reason we do these updates, to talk about these goals that we set kind of collectively. So if you've come to a strategy update before, you'll have seen this schedule, which kind of like puts on, well, the things that we've already done, but also the things that are coming up. So this schedule has been kind of here for the whole year, which we share every month. And it hasn't changed all too much, which, you know, is a sign that at the start of the year, we kind of came up with some of these really important points of mobilization, which then we've been building towards that since. So back in March and May, we saw this spectacle, mobilization, this rebirth, and then G7, which allowed us to build leaders and develop. And then throughout this, we've seen like the local councils campaign and local groups growing and gaining strength. And, you know, we have Catherine and Alison here today, who have been working, like doing amazing work with the local councils campaign, alongside so many other people as well. We saw July, which last month had an action under construction little thing, which, as we all know, kind of was what turned into the OSI Food Solutions blockade, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then we have the August kind of trifecta of Vegan Camp Out, Rebellion, Animal Rights March, which is all coming up. And then, of course, there's COP at the end of the year, which might be a big point of mobilization for a lot of groups. So this strategy update will be a little bit different from previous ones. And the reason for that is that we've just had our strategy review. So we kind of wanted to check back in with what we found from the consultation. So we created a review, which went through all the key points from the strategy consultation and asked for feedback on how we're going and moving towards those. So we found some really awesome things, points of growth, points of improvement, and also things where people think we're doing a really good job. So I'm going to share some of that, which I think would be really nice, as well as sharing some of our wins, which we do every month as well. So jumping straight into our wins. Usually what we do is we kind of go through a list of our wins. And last month, I kind of created an impact report, which goes through some of the kind of key things that have happened over the last 6 to 9 months. So here's a kind of some images which summarize some of those, and I'm going to go through them in a bit more detail as well. And apologies for the background noise. I hope you can all hear me okay. So some of the key wins that we have seen is that we've seen, 1 million is in Hackney alone, when they switched from 1 day to 1 day a week vegetarian meals, this is a massive shift, which allows for some real big massive improvements in for the climate and for animals. We also saw people like George Monbiot speaking out about our McDonald's action and saying how this is the kind of sign of progress towards a better future. And I think that quote there of "now at last we have mass movements and some highly effective actions, such as the successful shutdown of the McDonald's network by Animal Rebellion last week. If there is hope, this is where it lies." In addition to this, we've also seen 180 plus press mentions from March to July, with 150 of those coming from the first McDonald's blockade alone. And we've seen invitations to speak at international animal rights conferences, as well as a massive increase in our reach of our newsletter. So this shows that we're really kind of improving the amount and the extent to which we engage with people outside our usual base. And we have, as I said, there's a whole impact report about this, which goes over things like social media, press, as well as internal growth, international group growth, which I'm going to kind of go through really quickly now, and then I'll share as well in the follow-up email. So can everyone see my screen now? You should see 2021 impact report. Is that yes? No? Okay, one sec, I'll share again. Here we go. Is that all good? Cool, amazing. So this is the impact report, which as I said, I'll share in the follow-up email. And this is designed for funders and people like that, But I think it's also a really good chance for us to reflect on what we've been up to. So some kind of key things is seeing, 15 new volunteers and teams since January, which is really great from our recruitment team. We've seen, local groups really like popping up all over the country. We look at social media across all platforms. Our reach and engagement are up, especially peaking around the McDonald's action, but kind of slowly trending upwards as well. So I can zoom in a little bit there to see some of that. TikTok is, we didn't have a TikTok until about May of this year. Obviously, it's a massive channel amongst younger people. We're seeing, like millions of views now on some of our videos. Another kind of key thing is just looking at our email list and how that's been growing. And yeah, like really seeing like this kind of goes back all the way to July 2019 and then up to this year as well, in July 2021. So just, yeah, really real massive growth there, as well as our newsletter subscribers. If we look at press, we can see things like increase in total news coverage being up 157% compared to July 2020, as well as, yeah, like things like our McDonald's action gaining 130 plus press mentions and increasing coverage across mainstream news outlets, which is really positive. Also looking at our major projects, a little bit about local councils campaign. Yeah, just like some amazing things happening around there in Hackney and Brighton and Somerset, as well as, in all the kind of 47 local authority areas, maybe more, maybe less now, I'm not sure. But yeah, and some really amazing work and some great kind of news coverage of that as well, as we can see by that beautiful picture of Catherine there. Also seeing, the G7 protest camp with, over 80 people at the Animal Rebellion camp. Obviously, for a small movement, that's, really great turnout. And obviously, we had major police repression, but that definitely led to an upsurge in public support through our crowdfunder, event attendance, and volunteer signups, as well as kind of like allowing us to make connections with groups like Vice and national papers who are quite keen to cover what happened. So this impact report only went up to July, so it covers the first McDonald's action, and I'll chat a little bit about the second one as well in a minute. So this was, the time when we blocked the 4 distribution centres, and we saw some really massive things, such as 55% in the UK seeing this action. We kind of had the foresight in this instance to put out a poll beforehand through kind of a legitimate provider of this kind of thing. And we managed to kind of get this information, which is, really useful to have, and also really kind of powerful to know that our reach was that far, as well as massive kind of impact and reach across social media, and 60 new signups for our volunteer form. As well as that, we've made, increasing partnerships across movements, especially within XR. We've seen Animal Rebellion and anti-speciesism talked about in XR's newsletter with a 200K reach. So this was an XR global newsletter. And yeah, we've seen XR sharing our posts very frequently, as well as other groups as well, such as DXE, forming coalitions with other animal rights groups, as well as other environmental groups. Our international presence continues to grow. I got these maps courtesy of Dennis, who does an amazing job working with international groups and coordinating that. So we can see in there, we have this little key of orange means these are developed groups, so active groups, and yellow is developing groups. So smaller groups, or maybe someone who's interested in starting a group. So we can see, we have a massive presence across so many different continents now, particularly developing in the States, as well as Europe, of course. But, also, as we can see, some things happening in Australia and other places as well, which is very exciting. And then, of course, we have so much coming up, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But yeah, I wanted to share that to give a little snapshot of what we've been up to and some of our kind of our key wins that have been happening across across Animal Rebellion, across the movement, like from actions to talks to social media, like there's stuff happening everywhere. So I'll go back to the presentation now. Here we go. So, as I said, that report only went up to July. And of course, since then, and since our last strategy update as well, we've seen our massive 3-day occupation of OSI Food Solutions. So this was a follow-on and a big kind of escalation from the first McDonald's blockade, and obviously saw, you know, I think it got up to 100 people at one point camping at this place, you know, in Northern England. Very, very exciting, like amazing people really kind of making sacrifices. And, you know, some people were up the structures for 62 hours, which is just incredible. Really shows like how inspired and motivated people are to make change. So from that as well, we got a lot of great press coverage, a lot more local press coverage as well, which shows the kind of benefits of, you know, expanding outside of being too close to London and, you know, interacting more with like local communities. We had quite a lot of like local support with people coming, bringing food, and thanks so much to Jane for organizing a lot of that and really bringing a lot of that local support into the action. And yeah, it was like, I think it was just a massive team effort as well. Like, whereas the first action was a lot more probably organized by a smaller group of people, this one was like, it couldn't have been done without, I think, everyone in Animal Rebellion being part of it and making it happen. So yeah, really incredible effort. And we've, you know, gotten a lot of positive reception as well from XR as well as other groups, and a lot more people really interested in getting involved. So moving on from that, I'm going to talk a bit about the strategy review. So as I mentioned, the strategy review was a chance for anyone who wanted to. It was shared like as widely as we could, to take part in reviewing the goals that we set as part of the strategy consultation, and identifying how we're progressing towards them and how we can improve as an organization. So I guess briefly, I think it was 13 people filled in the strategy review, which, you know, is a great number. It's a great opportunity to hear from some people from different teams and from different parts of Animal Rebellion. So I'm going to go through the findings now, like some of the key things that came up. So I think really interestingly, about 46% of the people had been involved with Animal Rebellion for over 12 months. So, which I think shows like, you know, that we have like quite a bit of longevity and that people are sticking around and still contributing. And I'm going to start by going through some strength areas. So basically there were quite a few kind of goals and areas that were identified as part of the strategy consultation. And there were, each kind of question was put on a scale of 1 to 5. So they were all posed as questions, and then 1 was strongly disagree and 5 was strongly agree. So these are areas where I felt like doing this, I felt that there was quite a strong sense that we're moving towards kind of moving in a positive direction in this area. So we saw 45.5% of people say that we are working more and with and have stronger connections with diverse groups and communities. And even though there was some kind of hesitancy around this, with obviously people rating this on a different level, I put this in a strength area mainly because this was identified in the strategy consultation as such an area for growth, and such an area that we hadn't touched on at that point. And a lot of people identified it as a point of tension around Animal Rebellion, that there wasn't enough effort put into developing these connections with diverse groups and communities. So I think it shows real positivity that people are rating this quite high, and obviously still an area to continue growing in. I think we also saw 60% of people say that they agreed that we are a more connected group with stronger coalitions, which feels really positive, as well as 30, quite a like people scoring from like in the 3 to 5 zone, which is neutral to strongly agree, in that we have made significant and measurable progress towards our goal of seeing a win in the media, which I think is quite positive, especially seeing the media attention that we've gotten. I think this one as well was quite interesting. Obviously this is quite hard to measure, but seeing people being generally quite positive that there is a stronger link between animal agriculture and climate in general society. And again, the reason I put this in a win is not because, you know, everyone agreed on this, but because this is such a massive part of our goals that, you know, to see people being quite generally positive about it. And I'm going to touch on some other things people said about this in general in a minute, I think is really positive. As well as our strength areas, of course, we have things that I think are moving in the right direction and still areas for growth. So we have seen like some things around local councils and schools, and people kind of like, I think it's trending in an upward direction. It seems that people do feel like we're moving towards this goal of seeing 10 plus schools, local councils and university campuses making a significant transition of their menus towards a plant-based food system. So seeing quite a lot of people agree that when like 44% of people agree that we're making progress towards that, is quite positive to see, and I think shows that we are moving in the right direction there. But obviously that probably needs a bit more energy and a bit more effort as well from everyone. So I think also seeing that 46% of people felt that we are moving towards having inclusion and anti-oppression literacy being spread internally. And I think like that's another area where we are moving in the right direction there. And it would be great to do more. Like, I think there's more work to do there. And obviously with the reformation of the culture team, hopefully that's going to only go upwards. So we'll hopefully in the future see those people who currently, you know, aren't too sure, a bit neutral or disagree with that, moving towards the agreeing with that. And I think, yeah, like all these are signs of areas we can grow in as well. Another one where we're moving in the right direction is having a stronger element of visioning. So this was about 50% of people were unsure, which says to me that maybe this isn't like clarified what this means and how we actually do this. But everyone else kind of felt like, yeah, they do agree with that. And we do have a stronger element of that. So I think another sign that we're moving in the right direction, and maybe there can be more specificity on what that looks like and what that means. Also seeing that, you know, people kind of like split on this sense of, are we making progress towards our goal of mobilizing 10,000 people through everything that we're doing? A lot of people are quite neutral. 33% of people agree that we are making progress, and 25% of people disagree, with no one kind of strongly agreeing or strongly disagree. So it kind of feels like we are kind of like moving in the right direction there, and with the majority of people being either neutral or agreeing. But obviously more work to do as well, and maybe as well thinking about what does it mean to mobilize these people? How do we know how many people we've mobilized, and what does it mean to see that happen? And also, what does mobilization look like with the kind of current climate that we're in? So other areas of moving in the right direction, seeing our campaigns achieve political impact, again, like a really massive one, and definitely an area for growth. In seeing that, you know, 40% of people disagree with that, that, you know, we're not yet kind of impacting like politically with our campaigns, but also seeing that 30% of people agree and 30% are neutral. So definitely room for improvement and room to grow there. And also, oh, sorry, I duplicated that one. So you can see that one twice. Enjoy that. And yeah, also seeing that people, again, are quite neutral about seeing mobilizing for the rebellion and the mass action, with 50% of people being neutral. So again, this kind of indicates to me that there needs to be a bit more work done on clarifying what this means, and maybe clarifying and communicating internally. And we can also see this with the last one, which is 70% of people being neutral towards our goal of increasing the number of full-time and part-time volunteers. So this seems like, you know, maybe there's a lack of communication about this, and people aren't sure or don't have enough information, which shows to me that we can probably improve that communication internally. The final thing that we have is some areas for improvement. So these are ones where it seemed like people were quite spread out and split, and not little bit divided on what they thought, and areas that we can definitely work, and also areas where there were, again, like a lot of neutral people, which is always just as interesting, I think, in some ways. So people definitely feel like we can do more to measure, we can do more to develop 10 to 15 strong, active local groups around the UK. So that's definitely an area where people feel that there's more work needed, more energy needed. Another area as well where we can definitely improve is delivering talks and trainings inside schools and universities. And hopefully when COVID kind of like continues to ease, this will hopefully become more possible, because I think it was put on hold a little bit, in-person talks with all the restrictions. I think having stronger links with other climate justice groups, I put this as an area of improvement, because this is definitely, you know, a really strong part of some of our milestones. And while 45% agree that we do have stronger links, there's also, you know, people who are quite divided on this and aren't quite sure where this falls. And definitely people feeling like they're not quite sure that we're making progress towards our goal of 4 strong active regional hubs across the UK. So these are, you know, like we have in London, like with like a couple of local groups and kind of a strong like national team, having more of these like hubs around the UK, which can kind of like plan and organize in a decentralized way. Finally, we have, you know, some people being quite unsure about mutual aid, and this was like raised as like a real point of growth that people wanted to see built into Animal Rebellion. So definitely a point where, and I know there was a mutual aid team developed, but I think struggled a little bit to get off the ground and get volunteers. So definitely an area for improvement there, as well as improving efficiency in teams. I think 50% of people just being unsure whether we have, and, you know, other people being, yeah, kind of agreeing or maybe not, like strongly disagreeing as well. And as well, we can see that, you know, improving networks for Animal Rebellion international groups and having a stronger global community is definitely an area where we can continue to grow and continue to work. So all of this is like, you know, the kind of review period ended on Friday. This is all very preliminary, just sharing as it is now here today. And obviously there'll be a lot more that will go into it, probably a report made, which can be shared with all all teams to talk more about, you know, how we can kind of work together to move towards our goals. And obviously we're coming towards the second half of the year as well, and we'll need to be thinking about what are our goals moving forward beyond the rebellion as well. So finally, we had a bit of a section, well, not finally, but we had a bit of a section on our milestones, and some really positive things came out of that. We saw things like 75% of respondents believing that we have made progress towards our milestone of shifting the Overton window, changing public perception. 85% believe that we have made progress towards our goal of becoming a dominant part of the climate movement, with 61% of people specifically referring to changes in XR. So feeling like we have shifted and have made an impact within XR, moving towards talking about animal farming and fishing and a plant-based food system. On the other hand, only 23% of respondents believe that we've made progress towards our milestone of influencing kind of the political discourse, which I think makes sense because, you know, it's a much kind of harder milestone. It's also not been kind of a specific target for us for a while. But then 84% of respondents believe that overall we are making progress towards our vision of climate justice and a plant-based food system. So I take that as really positive, that obviously, you know, we have room for growth. We have things that we can work on moving forward, and, you know, our strategy will continue to grow and evolve and change. As with everything in Animal Rebellion, we try something, we see how it goes, and then we adjust and we change as we go. But overall, really positive, I think. 11 out of the 13 respondents rated the McDonald's action as the most effective thing that we've done so far in 2021. So that was referring to the first McDonald's action, and some of them referenced the second one and the sit-ins as well. So again, really positive and exciting that people are feeling like what we're doing is making an impact, and feeling like what they're doing in their teams is making an impact. So areas for improvement and suggestions. So these came up as areas for, you know, chances, opportunities to improve our strategy or change directions as well. So some of those were having stronger internal coordination and modeling of good culture by leaders in Animal Rebellion. Building a stronger culture team came up a few times, as well as like mentioning that this is already happening. Improving and developing relationships with other groups and with the press as well. More recruitment and training. More concrete and tangible goals that look further into the future. So rather than thinking like on like maybe a short-term level, thinking more extended and thinking about our extended strategy. More people in active roles, having stronger regional hubs, better practice of regenerative culture. So, actually, practicing, not just saying, talking about regenerative culture, and shifting our strategy to include other issues, including pandemic. So all of those are areas where people felt like this is a place that we can improve, do better, move forward. And obviously, as we kind of shift into kind of beyond the year that was planned out of the strategy consultation, these are things that will definitely come up and be part of, I imagine, moving into the future with whatever team is working on strategy at that point and moving us into the future. So I think it's really important and really exciting that, we set our goals as an organization and we set them for, a year usually or 6 months, and we see, okay, this is what we're going to focus on, and then we'll, shift and we'll change and we'll go from there. So I think, we've had a really great 6, 7, 8 months. And soon it will be time to think, okay, what's next? What's in the future for us? So finally, it was just a couple of questions for people about themselves and Animal Rebellion. And I think excitingly for me, you could see that 70%, almost 70% of people felt that they are aware of our strategy and also the part that their team plays in the strategy. So that was really positive, that people felt like that they were aware of their purpose. And most other people were maybe felt that. So there was no one who, not many people who were like, no, I don't feel that at all. And it was either a strong yes or a no, sorry, a yes or a maybe. And also seeing that 70% of people have attended a monthly strategy update this year. And I imagine that there would be the same 69.2% of people who have attended a strategy update who say yes, that they are aware of our strategy and the part that their team plays. So I think for me, that shows the worth of these sessions, and the opportunity they give for all of us to connect and to talk about how we're going and how we're moving towards the goals that we set as an organization, and what comes next as well. So leads me into what's coming up, and I'm almost finished speaking. I'm very sorry. As I said, this one is a little bit different to usual. Usually it's less speaking, but really wanted to go through some of those exciting findings from the review and also the impact report, and share them with everyone. But obviously we have so much coming up. You can probably see in the background some amazing graphics which were made by the graphics team to publicize the rebellion as well as the Animal Rights March. So obviously we have the rebellion. So the next strategy review we'll do, not sure when it will be. I'm sure we'll figure it out, but we will have finished with the rebellion at that point. So the rebellion starts on the 23rd of August in London and will continue on until the 3rd of September. So obviously really exciting. I think the schedule has just been released tonight, if I'm not mistaken. And the handbook as well has just been released on all the channels. So this is all the information people need to know for now about the rebellion. And there will be camping, there will be actions, there will also be training and community building as well. And it will be for 2 weeks, from August 23rd to September 3rd. As I said, there will be camping, schedule and handbook will be released, 2 weeks. Come for anything that you can. And as well, of course, we have Vegan Camp Out, which is the 21st to the 23rd of August. I think tickets are sold out now. There might be a few left, but there will be quite a few people from Animal Rebellion there. And it's an opportunity to mobilize for the rebellion. and also just to connect with fellow people who are making change, and who obviously care about animals, and animal justice, as well as the climate. And then we have the National Animal Rights March on the 28th of August. So we want to see thousands of people on the street, but that can't happen without all of us. So I really encourage everyone to invite your friends, share with everyone that you know, and really encourage people to come on down. I've had some great conversations with people lately, who are coming down from lots of different movements, people from Camp Beagle and Meet the Victims, and a lot of other groups as well, who are really excited to, for the first time in a couple of years now, to come to the streets together as the animal rights movement, the animal justice community, and kind of work towards this change that we want to see. So, brings us to the end of my section. Hope you got something out of that. As always, send a follow-up email with all the links and the recording, so you don't have to have taken all that in now. But I think it's really exciting to be able to share things like the strategy review, which is an opportunity for everyone to participate and to contribute to what we're doing. And yeah, it's exciting to be in August, 8 months into the year, coming up to the time where, maybe a new team, maybe new people will be thinking about what are we planning next year. And yeah, excited to have a chat as well. So I'm going to hand back over to Sammy. So I'll spare you my background noise. And I'm going to stop recording now as well. So it's a chance to, have a chat.
Thank you, Harley.